Good morning, all, once again. Thanks a lot for joining in the session today. I'm personally super excited to be part of this great learning session. Great fan of Usha Reddy ma'am because of her achievements. One of the previous sessions that we have done, it was said that this is specifically for the leadership, that a great quality of a school or a leader is to be able to produce more leaders. And that's exactly what Usha Reddy ma'am has done. Around 25 principles is what she has produced so far, a huge record. I believe learning from somebody like her is certainly a great value addition for this strategical initiative by EdSense. EdSense is most advanced blended learning platform. It also has a blend of academics and psychology. Quickly on to our eminent speaker today, Dr. D.UshaReddy, an alumnus of Rishi Valley School, Jiddu Krishnamurthi Foundation, is a renowned educationist in the Twin Cities and has an impeccable track record in the field of education. As the CEO of the education vertical, Ms. Usha Reddy has clear vision to take the education vertical to the next level by creating a pan-India status. Ms. Usha Reddy's dedication in building schools which develop moral fabric of students who are rooted in Indian culture and tradition, but at the same time have a modernistic approach, is in true with her personal belief. She is the chairperson of the Hyderabad Sahodaya School complex, which consists of 83 schools and received a national award in 200 schools, and has received a national award in 2010 from Honorable President of India, Srimati Pratibha Pati. On 5th of September 2011, Ms. Reddy is well known in the city as an exponent of CBSE initiatives and is an CBSE master trainer for various programs and has trained many principals and teachers. Her latest achievement is being conferred the honorary professor title of Oxford Union at Oxford. So thank you so much, ma'am. It's a great honor to have a session today in your presence. So I'm gonna hand it over to ma'am now. All right, ma'am. Thank you so much. Over to you.
So very good morning to all the viewers. And I hope it's a very happy morning because I do believe that every time that we do something new and there's a learning experience, nothing else matters to us in the field of education. I'm here as just one amongst you, but I do believe that different perspectives that we share, creates that vibrant learning atmosphere. None of us are better than the rest of us, but I do believe that each of us has a trait that is something that the others can emulate. So on that note, I'm here as I'm learning through various webinars from various educators across the country and the globe. I take this opportunity to just share a few thoughts. I'm sure that many of the traits that I'm going to be talking of, I'm sure you can identify with, but I do hope that there will be a few takeaways for everyone who's here with us this morning. Without much ado, let's move on to today's theme, which is building process-oriented teams for 21st century schooling. I think all of us understand what is meant by 21st century skills because that's what we keep talking to for our children. But are we as principals equipped for the change is a question that we must ask ourselves, especially when this pandemic suddenly threw us off balance. And I think all of us have suddenly adapted and become great learners. So when you talk of the 21st century skills, and I'm sure that all of you know that the 4 C's are extremely important. So when we talk to children or we talk to our teens, I think we look at critical thinking and problem solving, we look at communication, we look at collaboration, and we also give a lot of impetus to the creativity, because that is the zeal that we would like to see in our teams, in our schools. And unless we are creative, we may not be able to adapt to everything that comes our way. So the way that teachers and principals have actually taken on to this new challenge that is faced, for us, I think creative ways in actually delivering content has started. Initially, I'm sure that all of us just used a platform. It could have been Cisco WebEx, it could have been Zoom, it could have been something else, and we were just delivering the classes. But very quickly, I think many of us have adapted to what are the other platforms that we can use? How can we better our assessment? How can we better our deliverables? And there is so much available that very quickly we have adapted to most of the changes that are required in our schools. So when we look at our schools and ourselves and our team of teachers, let us critically analyze and see what is this problem that we're faced with. Actually, I don't look at it as a problem. To me, it's just another situation. And just like we walk into school and every day we face new experiences, this is just another experience. So let's make the most of it. So are we equipped? And as leaders, are we doing our online training for our teachers? Are we ensuring that this is the best that we can give to the student community? I think all of us are working on the same page. Then I move to the other aspects of the 21st century skills, very briefly, which is digital literacy. We all understand that, especially now more so, how important it is for continued learning, the importance of, online teaching that has been going on. I think when you talk of technology, most schools, at least of some caliber, were already into using technology for deliverables. But the key change and transition has been that everything has become remote now. It's not a part of our teaching, but it has become a way of our teaching right now. Almost 100% distantly, teachers are trying to connect with the students. And this is a life that we've all accepted so beautifully. But there are few challenges, of course. The more schools, teachers are trained to use these new platforms, some amount of training definitely was required, even if it was remote training for the teachers. And I'm so proud of the teachers all over the world, because I think, we must put our hands together for them for the wonderful job that they're doing. And hats off to every principal who has taken it in her stride and ensured that this training has happened. But when we talk of media literacy and ICT literacy, there are few cautions that we have to be careful about. So when we are using this platform, I think you must communicate to the parents and ensure that, especially for the little ones, there is an adult supervision also. And for the adolescent children, I think we've come to terms with it, that we have to let them use these gadgets, but be cautious about the sites that you block. Keep tab about, what else they're browsing, and ensure that the gadgets are being used for the right reasons. I think the last part of the 21st century skills revolves around career and life skills. So, this flexibility, adaptability that we've all taken up to is a skill that we'd love to see in our students too. Taking an initiative and making them self-driven learners. I think that is so important. And I would like to reiterate that my faith in the students has gone up so much because they've taken on to online classes, they've been responsible enough to attend the classes, and they're coping with what the teachers are asking them or telling them to do. Now, social and cross-cultural interactions. We all know that it's, that now that we are in lockdown, there's a lot of anxiety, there's a lot of concerns, a little bit of frustration, that all of us, may have faced, more so for the children who are now 24/7 in their houses. But there are always two sides to a coin. And I think our role as educators, is to tell them the positives about it. The time that you get to spend with family, the time that you get to explore your latent, interests, create those wonderful videos. And, I've been browsing through a lot of videos created by parents, by children from various schools that are floating all over the net. And it's so wonderful to see that each one has become responsible and, have taken accountability for their own learning. And I think that is one of the key things that, all of us must be, aware of. And finally, it is leadership and responsibility. As a school leader, it is our role and responsibility to ensure that learning continues and we continue to learn in the best possible manner, that we can. So I think some of the key areas that we'll be, covering today is going to be the power of people, process, and technology. I'm sure that you've already read, most points of the agenda on the screen. So we move to the next one. So when we talk of people, process, and technology, which are the three ingredients, as I would see, to success. If we just have people that we recruit and we expect them to do the job right without adequate training, we all are aware that it's going to be a tough job. So getting perfect people, again, is not a solution. So I think every school and every organization will have a very strong vision and mission statement. So when you recruit people, for the organization, we always check out on their attitude, the present, how presentable they are, their communication, the drive that they have, and if they are willing learners. And I think as long as they have that aspect, I think the attitude is what matters. The skills and the knowledge, of course, are important. But I think when we say ask, the attitude comes first, the skills second, and then the knowledge. And all three are integral to schooling systems. But in schools, it's not just teachers that we recruit. When we are, formulating an organization that is holistic in nature, at every level, we have to be very sure that we are recruiting the right people. When that is done, I think it's more than 50% of the task that becomes easier for all of us. Now, what do we do with the people who we think are excellent? We take them on and then realize that there are lots of gaps, and they're bound to be gaps. I think this is where the cheer comes in, because you will never find perfect people to fit a perfect role. So I think the key to success lies in training, in implementing. And if organizations have more than one schools, then documenting these processes and using technology is very important. So what is the process that works for you may not be the ideal process that will work for somebody else. But I'm sure that the basic structure of all schools would be almost similar. What we are going to, kind of change a little bit are the frills that each of us have in our organizations, because that's the key distinguishing factor that we have. So, putting the process in place after recruitment is something that I feel is key to success. And then, using technology to speed up your work, to give you the right data so that you're on the right track. And, it's not end of the year that you start re-looking at what has happened through the year. But when you get timely data and you start acting on the data, that's when I think our lives become much simpler, because we're using all the three key distinguishing factors of a success story in an organization effectively. So we can now move to, the next slide, which is, I'm going to be talking about, effectiveness of schools. But before that, can we just watch this little video? So I think, when you watch this little video of a Formula One race, it reminds me almost of the academic sessions that all of us go through in schools. We start off because all of us want to race through the year and race through it with as much skill and, energy as we can. And we know that, that we have a goal to reach, and, we want to reach the finishing line of every academic session. But then what is important and what we need to take note of here is that apart from, the racer, who's, actually driving this entire track, which is, I would like to identify as the principal, they also need those people who are standing by, and that's your entire core team and your teachers, because within split seconds, they're supposed to, do the refueling, change the tires, and do everything else that's required. And then you're off on the track again until you reach the finishing line. So there's a lot of planning, there's a lot of process involved, and there's a lot of teamwork, collaboration until this F1 race from different countries that you've seen actually, win the race. So it's not one factor. It's not just the skill of the rider or the principal that leads to success, but it's not just the, the infrastructure or the track that you're on, but it's also the people who are involved and the pace at which they can actually adapt to changes and, deliver what they're expected to do. So that calls for a lot of, collaboration in changing the tires and everything. Similarly, in our schools, we have a lot of in charges, vice principals. I think hats off to each one of them, because they are the ones who are helping the principal, run this organization so smoothly. Because, when all the planning is done, the year planners, the micro planners, they're the ones on a day-to-day basis who are checking out whether everything is in place as well. So, as the saying goes, slow is smooth and smooth is fast. And, how better can we actually, kind of take a clue from what's happening, in this F1 race. So every academic year, before it's done by December, you have your pre-boards. Again, you're concentrating on admissions and marketing. And it's like, 1 year wheels into the other. And you don't realize how 2 decades or 2.5 decades have gone by. But every year, there are a lot of changes. And every year there's new learning, and we never repeat the same things. Whether it's success, we want to better ourselves. And if it is mistakes that we've made, definitely we don't want to be repeating those same mistakes. So taking a clue from this is something, which I thought was very, very imperative in this situation, where we're all adapting, because we don't know what the future and, it's all uncertain. But we are very positive people as leaders, school leaders, and we don't like that uncertainty. So we're quite sure that even if this was a way forward and we don't know for how long, we have equipped our teams and we will go on, because training is an ongoing process. So, when you talk of successful schools, I think it's very important that, we kind of understand the components of what makes it a successful school. So, the main thing is that, having that personal rapport with every member of your team is so important. Giving them that attention. I think the principal just being there at the beginning of the day before everybody comes in, and with a big smile, if she can greet all her teachers, greet all the children, I think the day begins on a positive note. That interpersonal relations is very important. The second thing is that, we are here not to become popular, but we are here to do a job. So when we find that things are not okay, the way that classroom teaching is getting transacted, so we have to correct somebody, we will do so, but we will do so in a manner that is kind of reassuring for the teacher that it's okay. Maybe you just need to make these changes and, kind of start implementing the suggestions, and you're going to be on the right track. And then, also how we work collaboratively with everybody is important. Because like they said, that, we're all integral parts of the same organization. It's just that we have different roles. So whether it is an IMA who's in your school, whether it's a driver, each one is trying to do their role to the best of their ability, and they all deserve equal respect. And each of them are coming and, kind of enduring the entire process. And, we must appreciate all of them, for everything that they're doing. The teachers have a different role, the in charges and vice principals have a different role, and all of us as leaders have a different role, but we're all part of the same puzzle, and we all will do our work so well that we all will succeed, isn't it? Then we move on to the third point, which is, that the value, that we bring, that each of them will have some value that they bring to the table. And as leaders, most of the ideas that we want to, kind of get onto the table, I think we should be the last to spell out our ideas. Always make the team feel that they're important, that their ideas are valued. Let them share their ideas, whether it's a problem, whether it is some innovation that you want to do in your school, and make them feel that they are important also. Of course, in the end, you can always sum up, add your ideas, and, in consensus, if you move, then I think that collaboration brings the best spirit across in all our schools. And then, when we are leaders, integrity is one thing which is like, uppermost for me. So I think here we are not just responsible, but we take accountability for everything that we do. So we're not doing something because we're being watched, but we do it because that's lifestyle for us and we believe in it. And like they say, values are caught, not taught. If the leader of an organization functions in this manner, then I'm sure that everybody else, be it the teachers, the students, will respect and emulate from this entire process. It could be all stakeholders actually having respect and value for everything that's happening, and who doesn't like rewards and recognitions. So a process-driven system will always ensure that somebody who's doing some good work, doing some additional work, it's always documented, and they must feel that they're being taken note of. So in the end of the year, when you actually look at rewards and recognitions and promotions, let it be systematic. We do it not subjectively, but in a very objective manner. So for a leader, I feel this is one of the very important ingredient of promotion and how you collaborate with your team in all fairness. So when we look at some of the next key success points or traits that one would find in a leader, I think there was so much that is written about communication, because that seems to be a very integral part of leadership. The way we communicate, whether it's systematic, whether we have a structure to what we want to deliver to different stakeholders in the school, is important. And to be able to do it effectively in a nutshell and not take too much time, I think is something that perfects with practice. So I think as leaders, that is one of the key takeaways, for me. And if you look at out of the 18, you look at pillars of communication, I would say that, we can focus on 5 of them. And it is being a great listener. Unless you are a patient listener, and listen to the point of view of the other person, then I don't think we're great communicators. Even listening is an art. And unless we listen, what decisions we take and how we're going to communicate thereafter may not be effective. So I look at this as a very key ingredient to, a leader's success. The second one must be, complimenting. So when we say that, complimenting is another very important, ingredient of how you're going to make your school a successful one, I think everything that everybody brings to the table is important. And you must appreciate anything that's brought to your table from others as well. And if it's not, I think justify it in a very rational manner so that they understand, why you're doing what you're doing. And to be an excellent leader, of course, is to have clarity of delegation. Unless you trust people in the organization and delegate tasks, you can't do it all by yourself, and it's not right. I do believe that the best of leaders are the ones who have the ability to create more leaders. So when you delegate and then you trust them and they do what they ought to do, and when you review it and probably with a pat on the back, encourage them, but also tell them that few things could have been done differently, that's when they learn, from you. So I think leadership is about creating more leaders. And, that's the best part, through your career. And I can say that, wherever you go, you find people who worked with you who are now heading very prominent schools. Meeting them, seeing them, talking to them, and, listening to their stories is so wonderful, because I think, that is like a success in itself, because you've created leaders. Now, all of us have meetings, and effective communication in meetings is important. Always having an agenda is important. So when you have meetings, I also feel that we must value time. So meetings can't go on forever. So there are different types of meetings that one should engage in. So sometimes, depending on the urgency, it's also all right to have stand-up meetings. So stand-up meetings, as is done in the corporate world all over the world, I do not mean make your teacher stand, for that 15 minutes. But what I mean is that this is a meeting where you just come, to the point, discuss what ought to be done, and then leave. So these meetings are effective because you're actually training people to strategize effectively how they're going to communicate what they want to communicate. And, for the students, again, like we train them in the elevator pitch, say what you have to say in a minute and a half or two maximum. What happens is that when you give value for time and you have to condense all your thoughts, I think it's a brilliant way of training people to become effective thinkers, effective people who can strategize better and, communicate it, in a very short span of time, because that value for time is something that is very, very important. Then the last one is optimism. No matter what, as a head of an organization, the very smile on your face will communicate, how the day is going to be. Be positive, no matter, how grave the situation is. If you are going to be worried and you carry that worried look on your face, it kind of transcends, and cascades down to the last person in your organization. But what you ought to do with that big smile and the courage that you portray, even if you're in a situation when you don't know how to do, take a deep breath and see what is the solution that I can find. Calm yourself down mindfully, and try to see what is the best way out for it. And then, start executing. So being an optimistic leader, I think, will definitely yield to great results. Now we move to what I thought was also important for everybody in an organization. To remember this acronym each is going to be very, very easy for all of us. So we talk of empowerment. So when we say empower, I think every person that comes into each of our organization comes with some learning. Sometimes they may have to unlearn and relearn to suit the organizational needs. But the manner in which we communicate this is very, very important. So training people to become a part of your organization means that we have to have clarity in what we want for an organization. We have a process in place, and so we start training them. And then when they start experiencing that, they will become an integral part of the organization. There's a vast difference between responsibility and accountability. There are lots of people, who will take some responsibility, but when things go wrong, they will not be there on the scene. So I think all of us as leaders, when things go right, attribute it to your team. When things go wrong, be in the front, lead from the front, and take that accountability into your hands. And that way, your team will definitely trust you a lot more, because you were also part of that decision making. So whether it is with the management, whether it is with the parents or anybody else, I think the best thing is that when you assess a situation with all integrity, check it out. And if your heart says that there's a small mistake that has happened, be honest enough and courageous enough to accept it. And I find that is the best way to gain respect from all stakeholders. And we move to the next part is also what I spoke of, having courage to own up when some things go wrong, and having the courage to be creative and innovative in changing times. I think we have to be risk takers, and we have to execute, what is required from time to time in the organization, because at the heart of what we do are the children, because everything is student-centric, and we have to make sure that whatever we're doing is for the best of the kids who are in our fold. And all achievement, I think, must be taken with a huge dash of humility. And I think that's important. Nothing should ever get to our heads. And when we work, I always tell, my team that the process is as important as the goal. And success will follow, but we do not just do something so that we're taken note of, or we get an award, or we get that recognition. That is just a byproduct. As it said in the Bhagavad Gita, and I truly believe, is Nishkama Karma Yoga. Do what you ought to do, and don't worry about the fruits because they will follow. Yeah, I think that is something that has been something that we have practiced, and it's been a great learning for us on a day-to-day basis. When we look at successful schools, I think today in this day of data and use of technology, as principals, we have multiple roles to do. Much that we are instructional leaders, we're also administrative leaders. And we also have to see that when we say that success of a school, then all processes and all aspects are in place. And when you have to look at more than one school, when you have to look at even one school really growing to huge numbers, and you actually want accurate data, and you don't want to make a mistake in any of your judgments, it's not possible with multiple branches, scaling up some schools all across the country or all across the state. What we need to do is to have relevant data, because data is something we can always fall back on, and some of the decisions that we take can be data driven. I wouldn't say all decisions are data driven, but I think in some key areas, unless data driven decisions are taken, there is no scope for improvement. We cannot function on assumptions, and we cannot let our subjectivity get into the process of school improvement. So to give a small example, even when we were not like so, there was not so much of technology in my initial years, every assessment that was taken, every question that is there and the marks allotted, every child, how they performed was an Excel sheet those days. And we would try to see which question, which carried 3 marks, many of the children did not answer. How is it in the next class, it was answered, but here everybody went wrong. Obviously, then this data will lead to, has this teacher taught this concept properly? Was she absent? Did she rush through it? Or what was the reason for that? And we have to get into remediation. Today, we don't need those huge Excel sheets that teachers need to maintain. So technology is so good that once you key in a lot of data, reports can be generated to suit your needs and decisions can be taken. So I think all of us, I think technology has become part of our lives, but how we use technology is something that will make effective decision making better. And I think we also need to know how much of technology is too much. So we draw a line there. I, for one, come from a background where, I never used to feel that, my creativity would get killed if I get into too much of technology, because I don't want other people's ideas, let me think of it afresh. Because I think that way, whatever I thought of was original. But today, I think we cannot live in that world because we don't need to reinvent the wheel. Time is important. So whatever somebody else has done, review it. If this is exactly what's in your mind, as long as you're giving credit to them, it's absolutely fine. So over the years and over the decades, we've also learned to mold ourselves differently. And I would still say that wherever I cannot use technology, I will not touch it. I'd like to bring that life into the classes. I would love my teachers to give them, life experiences rather than show them a video, when you can actually, take them to that place and give them that first-hand feeling. But in a pandemic, what do you do? So if you can't take your kids on, on a field trip right now, there's so many apps that can actually let you do that. And we'll be talking about that a little later on, in the session. So I think we have to adapt and do whatever is necessary. Then going to the next stage is that, you have to ensure that you have important metrics, and that will give you relevant data. Now, each school can customize performance analysis of each of the people who are, they're dealing with, and make sure that this metrics is what you want, because your decisions are going to be made on that. And the last point, which all of us follow, but maybe we need to kind of revisit, is how to become effective leaders is to plan, do, check, and then act. All of us do it, but I think, this PDCA is something that should become part and parcel of what we're doing in everyday life. So nothing happens without, great planning. And then, we have to exercise that or get that organized in our organizations. And once it is done or executed, then you check whether, the correct results are received or not. And then what you do is then you act on it again and ensure that, it's kind of tweaked. So I think, for example, that all of us started with these online classes, right? So teachers were taking, and I was told that some people had 8 periods and the teachers took their classes. Instead of being in the class, just imagine the amount of 40-minute periods through the day if you're going to be taking. What's going to happen to the overdose of screen time for the child? Is that how we want to function? So I think we have to tweak the way we handle our online classes. And, towards the end of the seminar, we're going to be touching on those key points as well. One thing as leaders is very important, that we respect time and we do what is essential for the organization. Every now and then, all of us must recheck and see what is it that we can do. So just like saying eliminate, and you have MUDA, which is a Japanese word when we say muda, which means waste. We have to check what I thought was essential now doesn't seem so important. So can I do away with it? So we have to get into this type of management and make sure that our organizations are removed of all these unwanted things. It's like an ongoing process. So you have to revisit whatever you're doing, and wherever you can do that trimming, 5 to 10% also, do it on an ongoing basis. I've been talking to a lot of managements and a lot of principals talking to me, and they're saying, managements were telling me, ma'am, we just realized that, 15% of the people that we had in administration, I'm actually functioning without them, and I think I can actually tone down my manpower. If we were actually following MUDA, and if we were doing it as an ongoing process, I don't think we should have been in the situation that we are now, which is a very grave situation for educational institutions also. So I think effective use of manpower and using them only where they are relevant is something that should be an ongoing process. Moving to the next idea now is to collaborate and make it inclusive and collective leadership. When things go right, like I said, the team has always achieved it. And I think that gives them, a lot of energy to put in their best and, be the best version of themselves. I do believe that if every member of your organization comes to your school with this mood that I'm going to give my best today, and that will be said every single day, then I think it's going to be a happy place to be. Why do some schools have people who stick with them for years on end? Why is it that some schools have a lot of attrition? Are we all not faced with the same problems of trained teachers getting offered a little more and then they jump organizations? But in spite of that, temptation of moving to a school because she's getting a higher pay package, why is it that our teachers still choose to stay with us? And I think those are the intangible values and bonds that we build with our teams, that they would say, no, I can do without that little, money coming in, but the respect that I get, the kind of work culture that I have, the kind of training that I'm getting, and the kind of learning that I'm getting here is something so valuable that I think this is second home to me. And I don't think I want to shift just for that little bit of money. If all of us could actually train our members to be like that, then I think, we can face any challenge and any competition. However, in case you have a few of your teachers leaving also, it's an ongoing thing that once we follow these processes, use technology, and we continue to train our teachers, I think there will be no dearth for us to survive, no matter what the competition is. Now, when we move to, the quality control, and I won't spend too much time on this, the 4 key things that all of us, must take note of are to analyze situations, evaluate, and then, improve upon them and then plan. I think it was similar to what we were just talking about. So, the analysis of what is actually happening in the environment of schooling today. We're faced with this pandemic and suddenly the whole thing. So analyze the situation and then decide, what is it that I'm going to do? How am I going to solve the problem by taking learning remotely? So there is a problem, but I have to find a solution. So you evaluate that, brainstorm, come up with the best solutions, and then, get feedback. I was, very happy when after we started the Zoom, very shortly after that, I had a Zoom, meeting with the parents and with the students, which we called P square T square M, which was principal parent, teacher technology meeting. And we took, feedback from the parents, and they were so excited, seeing the reactions of their children, and, when online classes were going on and everything else. And we also shared with them, how we have been cautious about bringing down screen time and, moving or, away to some modules which are off screen time as well, some which are auditory like podcasts as well. And so the parents were very excited that very quickly within a week, we were thinking, literally on our feet, and we were doing things differently. And we took the feedback from students as well. What are the things that they liked, about it? But what are the hardships too? And we also talked to them about social and emotional balance and, other things which are far more important than just covering ground when it comes to curriculum, isn't it? So I think it was effective. And I'm sure that, this is a learning that helped us improvise, what we were doing. And I'm just sharing this. I'm sure that all of you are doing it as well. Now, when you look at high-level process areas, in any organization, and especially we as leaders, instructional and managerial in other sense, one of the key successes, for a school from management point of view is the number of admissions made by any leader, right? So as principals, we're all cautious, and during lockdown, it was very tough, to reach the targets that we had set out for ourselves. But when organizations and leaders quickly changed to social media, quickly changed to making online admissions, I think, slowly we were able to pick up on the admissions as well. So I think if you're going to sit and think that, people have to come to your organization and meet the front office or the parents relations officers there, your admission in charges, get through the same process that you were following, when schools were functional, then I'm sure that the number of admissions that you make would be less in number. So you have to review every process, that is there, and see how you can improvise and change things to reach targets and, ensure. So when you are at the beginning of a session or, whatever you're going to plan for the next session, I'm sure that if you take each of your departments, validate the process that was there, remove, all the waste processes that are there. I think that's an ongoing process. Do not duplicate things, over either for the person who's come to you, the parent, filling in an inquiry form, and then again an admission form, and then again something else. I think wherever you find duplication is where technology can come in, and then, you can reduce that task for them, because like I said, everybody's time is valuable. And then you see whether, the process is aligned, and then I'm sure that we will succeed in optimum, reaching goals. And if you look at recruitment, we've touched upon this point that, that you recruit the best people that you can. And in case they're not the 100% fit, and that never happens, have the ability to have an ongoing process. It's not the leader alone that should be training everybody, right? And that's not possible. So at every stage, if you're creating leaders, if your HR is also trained and she's learned, then all the other departments, the administrator and the HR, can do the training and give you the feedback. Once in a way, you can attend those meetings, give them suggestions for improvement, and make sure that the training is an ongoing thing. And, it goes on whether you are there or not, because I do believe that a great leader is one who can say that even if I'm not there, my school will run as efficiently or as smoothly as if I were there. And I think that is the main point that we should all inculcate as great leaders. So you look at recruitment, whether it's teachers, then, get your in charges, get your HODs to be able to start training them the way you actually want them to do, whether it's to do with pedagogy, whether it is to do with the deliverables, whether it is to, kind of make it a little more experiential, exploratory, whatever your school believes in, is that really happening within the class and every class? I think, so I think give them the onus of leadership and tell them that, this is what we expect. And I'm sure that they will do a great job. So teaching, again, like I said, has to be aligned with the goals that we've set for the organization. The performance of a teacher, we've already said, must be systematically over the year, not at the end of the year, evaluated by different people for a fair evaluation of your performance. So, I feel that, if there's one for the principal, who can evaluate a teacher, there's one for an HOD, and you should have a different performer for an in charge with whom she has a closer interaction, and definitely a self-appraisal. And when you bring all these four components together, then you can see if there's any huge disparity somewhere, then, have a one-on-one meeting and make sure, listen to them and see whether something that they've done has not been taken note of by the others. And, give some weightage to that. Give always weightage for ongoing learning for teachers. I think one thing that I do believe is that now, every summer vacation, what we practice is that the teachers have to upgrade themselves by taking a couple of online lessons. I mean, you can go to the best of universities, enroll yourself. Some universities, of course, if you want the certificate, you need to pay. But otherwise, you do get a course completion, screenshot anyways. Even that's good enough for us. Just imagine if you have 150 teachers in your organization, and each one does 2 courses during a summer vacation, including the principal. You get back, and then, in a very short, concise time, give in a short module what your learnings were. 300 modules. Can you imagine how much of learning that is? That's a repository that we all have to feel really proud of. And I really love these sessions because I'm learning from so many people. And it really makes a teacher feel nice that I'm the only one who's done this course. It's my area of interest, and I'm going to share it with everybody else. Let them take pride in that. And the first year, of course, we face difficulty, but over the years, I think each one goes on posting how many courses they've done. And, that kind of makes the others motivated to do more courses. So we become a great group of great learners. And it's nice to be students sometimes and, not just teachers all the time. I move on to communication as well. Like I said, clarity in communication is so important. And we've touched upon that. The way you encourage them, the way you instruct, the students or the teachers is very, very important. Because as leaders, if our communication is not clear, then, something else would be happening at the other end. And we have nobody to blame but ourselves. So that's why I always feel that great leaders should be great communicators. And I think they should have clarity of instruction. And, the end goals will always be reached because we've already defined the process. So moving to the framework to set up these processes, I think many schools will definitely be having, but I'm told that there are some first-timers also as part of this session here, new principals. So I think it's just for them to understand that, today trying to keep, cupboards and cupboards of documents is not going to work. So I think the more we digitalize, processes and start saving things for us, it's better. Now, all schools have moved on to e-lesson plans. I remember in my initial years, there used to be a lesson plan book carried by every teacher. Today, they don't. We move to e-lesson plans, whether it is submission to the HOD, whether it is correction by the HOD, it's all done digitally. And I think we have to move to a paperless office. So that's an attempt, not just for environment, but also for upgrading our skills. That's a must. And then we look at saving all documents because we don't need to keep repeating the same things over and over again. So something beautiful has been created by a team of teachers. Why do the next round of teachers have to spend time on that? They can just review it, put in more, ideas to it, so that you have a stronger archive of activities that can be done or exploratory things that can be done. Worksheets, question papers, everything can just keep getting added on. But if the basic structure is okay and it's digitalized, let's not keep repeating, year on year what is being done. Then, you have to also organize documents. So that's very important. Otherwise, you'll have everything, but you don't know where anything is. We land up in that situation, which is not going to be helpful. So I think getting yourself organized is also very, very important. So automating these processes will make all our lives a lot easier. So that is very, very important. And then streamline the process. Like I said, time and over again, I repeat, a process is set by a leader and the team together. But when you review a process is when you know what has worked and not worked. What worked in for a couple of years may not be the best thing going forward. So unless we review and remove and streamline the process, we're not updating, the systems that ought to be relevant for that particular year and time. So, we have to find relevance in place and time all the time. So let's start working towards that and, transforming process and then communicating to all stakeholders is something that is very, very important. So when we build processes, with the key teams, there are a few things that, we need to take note of. So basically, it's a reward system. For somebody who's working hard in an organization, just that smile to let them know that, I was aware of this new teaching aid that, you used in your class. I saw the pictures. That was a wonderful idea. Coming from the principle that appreciation will keep her charged for days. Or just keep your door open to everybody who's made something different. If they've created a mind map, created a teaching aid, or they've come up with a great idea and the kids have really understood, have time to spend with them where they can come and share those ideas. If we don't allocate that time for the people who work with us, then I think, we are alienated from them. The connect to every classroom does not mean that you have to step into every classroom all the time. But you should be warm enough, a leader, where people can come and say, ma'am, I did this and it worked wonderfully. Would you like to see what I did? And as a leader, you always have to be interested in what your team does because the success of your organization depends on them. So it's very important. And you also have to cross-check and see whether it is aligned with the outcomes. Now, sometimes this is where you can actually button with your experience and say it's a wonderful activity, but where was the relevance of this? Are we arriving at the learning objectives and outcomes of this particular lesson? It's a great one. Kids have had fun, but is this something that is so relevant? So, instead of just brushing aside what they've done, start questioning them so that they start thinking, and that's how they better themselves. And, the next one again is, very important, where you make sure that, all processes are well documented and categorized. So, streamline things to that extent and utilize the feedback. So when we use feedback and get ahead with remediation, I think we are on the right track. Moving now to the, the value systems and mapping that is there. So I think we've said a lot about a lot of things like what needs to be done and all that. So let's get into how these things can be done, because there must be a takeaway, after the seminar where, you feel that maybe can I just relook at my organization? If all of you are doing it, I'm so proud of each one of you, pat yourself on the back. But for some of you who feel, I don't know where to begin with so much of information being given, this is a simple screenshot of what you ought to be doing. So you look at, the entire gamut of things that are being done in an organization. You can do this process activity and segregate, everything into value-added activity or essential but non-value add activity. And then you have non-value add activity, which means, like I said again, the stuff that you really don't need. So what you have, or the value-added activities, spend a lot of time on that, because these are the activities that will lead you to success. This is how, you need to frame all the things that you require in your school and use a lot of time on that and optimize these activities. So the concentration, once you've divided everything in your organization, is to make sure that these value added activities, are optimized. Then you look at the essential but non-value add, activities. So you have to just see whether the time allocated for these activities is too much. Please bring down the time. Don't keep doing things that are essential but of no value. Also question yourself and see whether these things can be delegated to somebody else. If they're a matter of routine, why can't they do it? So as a leader, I think, the more time you have, you shouldn't be the busiest person, but the person who has all the time in the world, for everything that's happening in your organization. I believe that the top person who's at the pinnacle of every organization should be the most relaxed person, because they've dedicated, because they put processes in place. And they also have a feedback mechanism where they know what is happening and they can also, kind of refine that system. It is so important. And the last one, or the non-value added activity areas that you've identified, dump them as fast as you can. This needs to be eliminated. So this simple, technique of what you ought to go back and do in your schools is, I hope, something that, will make it more easy for you. So just this one slide with your team. For every department, if you can sit with and start questioning, what is it that we need? That without this, we can't function. What is it that is so important for our children? Is this what our parents would want us to be told? Right? Optimize that. The next one is, yeah, we're doing it, it's essential, but can I delegate? Can I get somebody else to do it? And just look at a review mechanism. Don't keep doing things that you ought not to do. And the last one is, can we do away with these things? Our organization, they're there, but do we need these unwanted things just lying there? A lot of time, process, and skills are getting wasted. Then please review and eliminate. Now, I think, what are the changes that are relevant to us as educators? Now let's get to what our core is, and understand pedagogy to a vast extent. I'm sure that, as leaders, this is something that all of us are very, very passionate about. So if you look at, comparing, I found this slide, quite interesting, because like I said, we are used to this term pedagogy, but I think when it comes to teachers and their learning, like I said, even all of us have to be, lifelong learners. Let's understand what's the difference between pedagogy and andragogy. And then there's another term I'm going to be introducing to many of you, I'm sure for the first time, is heutagogy. So there are three distinguishing, sets of, points that, have been laid out in this slide. And as educators, for our children who are below 18, of course, it's going to be pedagogy. So when we understand pedagogy and you look at the maturity of the learner, usually you will find that they are less than 18. So the student's motivation for this particular thing, it could be an adult when it comes to andragogy or, heutagogy. Then, what is the difference that we actually come across? So when you look at pedagogy, and we're used to it, so let me finish with pedagogy first. For all aspects that we've aligned, the maturity of the learner is obviously not right there, right? I mean, they're kids after all. So what happens is that they're still immature learners. They need hand-holding. And so we also, as teachers, significant amount of guidance from our end is required for them. When it comes to the student motivation also, some of them may be self-motivated, but a majority of them, I mean, teachers stand there, as the tallest people in the class, and they would get motivated by what the teacher says. Not just what the teacher says, as I would like to correct myself, it's how the teacher makes them feel. That teacher becomes a teacher that they would start doting on, and that subject would become the best subject for them. So I, to share an example from my own childhood, you know, I was finding it very difficult because I'd moved from another state to learn Telugu. So when everybody else was reading and writing and everything in fourth grade, I was struggling with the basics. And somewhere that encouragement that I lacked there somehow petrified me. And, if it was a Telugu language class, I mean, short of breaking down. But what happened is the year after, I had a different teacher. And the teacher actually told me, I read your poem in English, and your writing skills are so good. All languages are the same. Why would you think that you can't do this? So I said, because I'm still struggling with the basics and my reading is so slow. And the teacher said, can you just come, and in the evening, I'm going to give you some prep time because it was a residential school. Spend some time with you, and I will make you an effective reader. Little effort, just that little pat on the back from the teacher, and my personal experience of going there, struggling it out, actually helped me, then cope with the class. Believe me, after, that year, when it was a Telugu class, I mean, of course, I didn't have to break down because I really liked the teacher. The teacher was guiding me. He was helping me overcome the issues that I had and was making me gain in confidence. So my humble request to all the teaching community is how you make a child feel in your class is so very important. The social, emotional connect that we make is so important. That will further learning for us. Now, getting back to the role of the learner and the experience that is created in the learning process, the learner brings, little life or learning experiences to the learning, and the learner is trying to build on the learning. So we do believe in the constructivist approach. So, we construct the knowledge, along with the child and help them gain that knowledge. Now, everywhere, if you see in pedagogy, the role of a teacher is pretty important. The guidance, the hand holding, and everything is there. And if you look at, the role of the instructor also is that, they're designing and they're kind of hand holding the child and, doing the remediation and so on and so forth until the child really learns what they ought to learn and the learning outcomes have been achieved. Now, when you look at the applicability of online environment, now what is happening? What we thought was actually there, but it's okay. We can use it for a couple of flipped classrooms or, do a couple of modules on blended learning. Today, that's the only thing we're left with. So, I think we have to adapt to that and say, what is the best manner in which our children can learn, right? But in this whole thing, when we're looking at teachers under andragogy, there's a lot of self-motivation, and they look at, the maturity levels are more. They decide which, a topic they want to learn online or what they want, which course they want to, upscale themselves, upgrade themselves and do that. So that you find that as you age, like when I'm taking the teachers or, the college going students, their choice and their voice is a lot louder. Though we do believe that even in our little lessons that we do, even for the primaries, the voice and choice of a child is definitely respected. But here, the choice of what you learn, online, definitely, you get a free hand and all your passion, can be done because unfortunately, in India, we do not have that, let's say that you are a science student, you stick to those subjects, right? But you may also be interested in dramatics or literature. You may also be interested in, let's say, history, but you don't get that combination in any of our universities, isn't it? Which are now updated, and all over the world, you have a lot of universities opening up to this, choice of subjects that you can take. So, here in andragogy, the learner is definitely more evolved. So you choose what you want. For example, let's say that I haven't been taught programming. I'm an art student. But a time has come, maybe the basics of programming and what my kids are talking, I want to learn. Lockdown has proved to be the best time when you can actually spend time on things you thought you could never do or the things you wanted to do. So I think it's a brilliant time for a lot of learning that's happening for a lot of us. So that calls for andragogy because you are self-motivated and you drive yourself and then you kind of take on what you ought to do. And it's also well suited for the online environment. That's the best thing. But when you go to pedagogy, there is a little difference because I think the role that one plays is, the onus on the learner and the way you go on. Believe me, when I went through this, I was thinking, aren't we expecting our kids also slowly to move away from what they're used to and become, forcing them to grow up a little more, do things on their own, and and I think that's a positive thing. So I think it's a beautiful thing that our kids, with our faith in them, that they are self-learners, our belief in that they can do it, even with a little bit of online teaching, they're able to also source materials themselves. And I think that's a very positive thing. And I think that is why a lot of children have come up with such beautiful projects and such beautiful takeaways that it's kind of encouraging for us. We don't need to feel bad that schools are shut and we're teaching only remotely. As long as the learning is happening, let's be happy educators. So now we get to the practical aspect of how are we going to really do all of this. I'd like to move to the 5E model that we are implementing. And there's a 5E model that one implements when you are in class, and there is a 5E changed model that one can implement when you're doing online classes. So I'll just spend a few minutes on this. Basically, when you want your learners to learn at different stages, in the 5E model, for those of you who are not familiar with it, I'm sure many of you are, the first stage is engage, where the teacher will throw open, let's say, a question, and try to gauge the students' knowledge, how much knowledge they have about the topic. You're declaring it. You may play a video. You could also use a picture and get the discussion going. You could use any number of ways in which you're going to actually start off. What you're actually trying to do is you're trying to kindle that curiosity in the child. When you have a curious kid, then the interest levels to learn further will be there. So that is what you're going to do in stage 1, which is engaging the children in this discussion, or probably showing them a movie, or showing them a picture, or asking them some questions. Then we move to the next stage, which is the exploratory stage. Okay, what I'm going to do here is explain these and then also see how we can change it for online teaching. The next stage is an exploratory stage, which is more collaborative. Children used to form groups, and then they explore that topic a lot more, try to come up with their own learning as well, right? And so it's experiential learning that this stage focuses on. And then we move to the third stage, which is the explain part of it. So the teacher again takes control of this stage. The second stage was totally student driven. The teacher is only walking around and probably giving a bit of guidance, just listening to what the kids are doing. Let them make mistakes, let them learn, it's okay, but she's just observing. But when it comes to the explanatory stage, the teacher is now first going to listen to what the kids have to say, what their learning is, and then what she will do is, in a very subtle manner, drive all the points that are there in the content of that particular lesson that probably the kids have missed out. She will reinforce those points and ensure that merging, the mind map that she has, the key points of the lesson, and the children's knowledge, what they've constructed, is all amalgamated in this stage for better learning. And then we move to the next stage, which is of the higher order thinking skills. We understand for any topic to have relevance to a child, the child should be able to apply that knowledge. Unless an opportunity is given to a child to apply that knowledge, then they are not going to move to the next level. So the fourth stage is basically when you extend or you elaborate on your learning, is to get deeper into that topic, get a deeper understanding, and the HOTS or whatever, the higher order thinking skills are in place. That's when the complete cycle is done. And then the teacher, of course, before she closes on the cycle, evaluation is a must. Once you evaluate the learnings of the children, then the remediation can be done. Now, this 5E model is what is, being implemented in many schools in a structured classroom method. And, whether it's teacher driven or student driven, it's fine. But now, if we were to conduct the same 5E model, which all of us are online, let's see what can we do so that we use some tools which will actually help us. So for example, in the first stage of engaging them, which website can I go to? And, what is it that I can download and then put it there? That is important. So for each stage, we'll have to see if I want to take, let's say, a quiz at the beginning of my topic, right? Then if I use a Kahoot, for example, when I'm an online teacher, and immediately I get the responses of all the children, I know at what level they are, and I can take this lesson to the next stage, right? So you have to see what is available, on the net, and then see what can I use for each of these stages. I mean, these what you're seeing on on the screen are just samples. They're not the ideal ones for all lessons. I'm sure if you look for a lot of stuff on the net, you will find a lot more. Vocabulary, for one, is another one that you can also look at, because it's quite an interesting one. Moving to the next stage, which is an exploratory stage, and which is done by the kids at home with all the inputs given by the teacher. They can even collaborate with their peers, though it's going to be remote collaboration. You will have to see what is it that you can do. For that also, there's another one which is called Linoit. Now, especially in, let's say, an IB classroom or even for a CBSE classroom, what happens is when you have a collaborative session going on, children come up from different groups of their ideas. And what we do as teachers is they write it out on a post-it and we put it up on, on the lesson board, right? Now, what do you do when you're teaching remotely? And I found this tool, very, very nice. It's called linoit.com, where you can take your sticky post-its and you can type out whatever, and virtually you can post it on the board. So you actually have a learning bulletin board that all the teams are collaborating from their houses, and they're actually posting it out there, creating something to show to the teacher or along with the teacher. And you also have Power My Learning. So when we talk of blended or flipped, I find teachers saying, but I don't have this equipment and I'm recording, my videos, and or a math teacher saying, I have to teach trigonometry and I really don't have a whiteboard. The whiteboard, what you have on these platforms, like, Zoom or, MS Teams or whatever, is inadequate for me. Then the simple thing is to go to these, cloud-based curriculum that's already available, where people have actually taught and recorded. Believe me, right from grade, let's say, whatever, grade 1 also, you have teachers who made these little videos and posted it. So if you can't record, don't waste your time doing it. Just surf the net, take these things from, which are already on the net, and use those. So you can send it as an instruction prior to you starting your class, where they can go through that at their flexible time. So they have some understanding of your lesson, and then, you can come back. Or you want to push something for the exploratory stage, use what is available on the net. Don't waste your time. If you tell your time with yourself that, time is so important for me, make effective use of time, pick what is there already and get ahead with the next stage. The third stage is the exploratory stage. So the kids could have done anything, and you see whatever they've done and, what tools they've used and, and what they've actually learned from that, the key takeaways. And what you will do in this stage is that all the key points that you have, in your lesson, your teaching points, make sure that they're all covered and reinforce what you have to do regarding, what the children need to learn related to that particular lesson. Spend some time on this. This is a very important stage, and you round off all the learning and then you get ahead. The fourth stage is the next stage. So, can I just go back to that slide? Go back to that slide. So you have Mentimeter, and you also have storyboard. So, this storyboard is a story. There are 2-3 of them. There's another one called Storybird also that I saw, I think, where you can actually create a story. You can create cartoons, and, you can just pull, pictures and paste it there. Kids can create their own comic strips. So, there's so many of these online tools that you should be given. I was also questioning my teachers after lockdown, saying, why is it that we don't give some fun assignments for them? Because you have so many gaming sites. You have sites where you can give these assignments to your children, which we never used, to be honest, earlier. But now we've made it a norm that, and kids also tell you which are these sites and what you need to do. So that's why I'm saying respect everybody's viewpoints, take it. But as long as your school is the most effective one when it comes to learning, I think we all can be chilled out. So, for assignments, There are many gaming things, creating cartoons. You can write your own poems and cut paste illustrations. You can create your own novels on the, short novels or short stories on the net. So many of these things I think teachers ought to get familiar and start using for each stage. Now moving to, the next stage is the stage where you can extend and elaborate. So like I said, Learn Zillion is another cloud-based stuff that you have, and you have Padlet, you have Flipgrid, you have so many. But the thing is, for each stage, for each lesson, you will require different tools. These are only samplers that are being shown, but I'm sure that if the HODs have their internal meetings and they share it with the other HODs, then okay, she found a new tool. Why don't I use this? How is that used? This is a time of learning. All of us do not know everything about these things, but as long as we're on the, learning something different, learning about more tools, what are the assessment tools? What are the exploratory tools? What are the hands-on experience tools that we can give? What are the tools where we can use for ready-made videos that I don't waste my time? The explanation is good, so why am I going to record, my teaching again? I can just take this and put it in. I think effective use of online material is something that all of us must get accustomed to. And the last one is to evaluate. Now, Google Docs you can use Kahoot as well, but it depends, because if it's a quiz, then you can do this. It's very easy to create. It also has answers, so you get even the scoring. But if you don't want to, you can even choose personal scoring for marking for your own children, and everything. When you get back, it could be like a couple of lines, whatever. There's so many tools that you can do. Even for mind mapping, there are tools. So you can do part of it and leave it to the kids. That can be a very fun assignment where they actually finish it up. So we have to just keep sourcing material. And I'm sure that, when we all learn together, share what we have learned with our teams, with others, I think we'll be the greatest learning community. More power to all of you who are here on today's webinar. Be great leaders, share knowledge with everybody, because it's only when we share that, our learning improves, because we are constant learners. So on that note, I take leave of you all with the session. And, I hope that some of you have a couple of takeaways and you will have something to implement in your organizations.
Great, ma'am. Thank you so much for most insightful session, not just about talking about what and also how aspect of it. And for me personally, some of the takeaways are basically on building a process-oriented teams, which is super critical for everybody, and eliminating the wastage. We just did not talk about the eliminating the wastage aspect of it, but also identify the quality control so that you arrive at the right conclusion. And you have 5E model beautifully articulated, ma'am. This is very important aspect when it comes to online and offline learning. And to all the participants, if you have noticed, ma'am spoke about various tools and platforms that can be used. And EdSense is something that can cater to all the 5Es. So look at our website so that you can get all the details about it. And I personally loved pedagogy and andragogy concept, ma'am, because in this online era, how do we make students accountable of their learning? How do we build that taking ownership of my learning, and also taking ownership for the teachers also in their learning, right? So that is something which amazingly articulated, ma'am. Thank you so much for these insights. So we're going to take, because of the interest of time, we're going to take around 3 questions. So request you guys to post your questions on the chat window so that we can take it up. I know most of you have already typed a lot of questions here. I'm going to pick up the relevant ones. So request you to please type your questions on this session so that we can take it up.
So what I'd like to add is that, when we're doing all of what we talked about in this entire process, I think one area that, we all need to concentrate on a lot more. See, all of us are doing it, but I think we need to concentrate a lot more, is an area of creating mindful schools and happy schools. Whether they are, at our campuses, or, whether we're doing it remotely, I think getting children to focus on themselves and becoming calmer is so important. I was just reading, a couple of cases, about abuse at home. between parents and children, between other members, of the family during lockdown. Because if we talk of just learning, I think these are life's lessons that we ought to, kind of focus on. So I remember that, when our children were sent for the value education, as CBSE has said, to Ramakrishna Math, Swamiji was telling me that he had a couple of Indian schools, and especially from Hyderabad, from where I come from, who had attended these sessions. But I remember pinpointedly telling me that he had a team that had come from Japan of, very young children in the primary years. And these children were able to sit still and were able to remain calm and, go through the mindfulness session, as we call it for them, because maybe meditation would be too big a term for them. And I had an opportunity to actually witness this. And it was so wonderful. And I think what we need to do is that we are a country, that is famous all over the world for yoga and meditation and holistic healing, as one is seeing right now. Kerala being so successful in handling the pandemic and everything, natural ways, natural remedies of what we need to do. I honestly felt that, if these kids can do it, how much of practice would have gone in their schools and homes? It becomes natural or second to them. So in our schools also, what we do is that, calming the children down, getting them to focus on their breath is important. Now, if you go to pre-primary classes or middle school or senior schools, there are different ways in which you can actually put this structure into place. So it is so important because for the little ones, for example, you want them to inhale and you want them to exhale, right? You want them to inhale and you want them to exhale. So if you say breathe in and then you breathe out, I'm not sure how many of them are going to be doing it. They'll probably just be looking at you. So you have to give them tips. So you tell them, pretend that this is a hot cup of chocolate. How many of you like a hot cup of chocolate? Then you'll find the hands all going up. And then you say, it's very hot. Okay, we're holding, this is a cup. Okay, please get a little imaginative now. Tell them to smell it. Take a deep breath and smell the chocolate. So they take a deep breath and then we say, breathe out. And then they will listen to you. You're giving them something to focus on, and that's how you train the mind. And you keep doing it and then tell them, put it down. Okay? And then say, shall we wait for some time? Let's check whether the chocolate has really cooled down. Can you go and smell it again for me? So they know immediately they have to breathe in and then they breathe out as well. So there are many games. When you go to the primary, we also have this finger game that you can follow. So if you can't just get the kids to remain silent and sit still and do it, for some of them who are fidgety, you have to find ways in which you do it. There's another one that I came across, is so nice. It's called hand meditation or mindfulness. So you hold your hand and you say, breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in, hold, and breathe out. So as they are given an activity to do, they continue to breathe in, hold, and breathe out. So this mindfulness, that we want to create in our children, is really nice. And sometimes we also have to ask them, how did you feel when you did this? So especially the song or the sound of a bell or a gong, kind of the vibrations actually calms a child. So if you ask them, they put their hands like this, and how do you feel? And you'll find the little one saying, I'm feeling calmer, I'm feeling nice, I'm feeling still. Let them talk about it. When it comes to middle school, of course, you'll have to come up with more activities. So the first thing is, when we say body, mind, and spirit in that order, first children must be trained to have control over the body, to sit still, in a comfortable position. And just be a spectator and just watch the thoughts. Even if you can't control all your thoughts, it's fine, but just become an observer. And then note down and let it be, it doesn't matter. And then they say that after a point, today I was able to sit, ma'am, and it was very peaceful because I had a clear mind today. So for other children, like if you want, for some of them who are fidgeted, you can also have glitter in a plastic bottle. And you just shake it up and you turn it around for them and just ask them, the primary children, to keep watching it. So as you're doing it, they have to keep breathing and breathe out till they see that all the glitter settles in the bottle. So they have an activity to do and they're focusing on the breath. And for the seniors, believe me, during lockdown, the more you are able to be with yourself, more connected with yourself, just not doing anything, not taking online classes all the time, watching TV all the time, doing house chores or helping your parents, for some time. We all know that you're being great kids and doing all of it. But the thing is, spend some time for just being yourself, not doing something, but just being. So that means you should have the ability to just sit, just stare at, the sky or the trees, or take in that fresh air, and just be for some time without thoughts. I think when you get kids to keep doing this practically, what happens is the quality of their life will become better. We all understand that the life's greatest lessons from the pandemic have been this balance in life, to accept what comes our way, because sometimes we have no control over these situations, but what we have within our control, let's make the most of it. So instead, you have always a choice. Either you grumble about it, you're unhappy about it, so you don't feel nice, or you choose to become a learner, choose to learn something different, choose to be a little more helpful at home. You become a more productive and a happier person. So the choice of your emotions is within your control. And for adolescents, yes, there are a lot of techniques in which you can also control these emotions, because you're being supervised by the adults all the time. Sometimes it's getting frustrating for you, and many of them are reaching out. But let me tell you that this is a time of slowdown. This is a time when we need to reboot. So start rethinking and say, my reaction with my parents, was that warranted? Should I have been so reactive, or can I be a little more proactive? Should I not have thought of it? Control my emotions. Whether I'm holding my fists and counting 10, or whether I'm just breathing 10 times before I react. Did I practice that before reacting? So to become a peaceful person, to become a balanced person, I think to become a creative person, you need that peace of mind. So, I do hope that the children will also practice it, and teachers also. It's stressful time for them. They're handling so much at home, their own children, their husbands working from home, and the online teaching. And here you have leaders telling me, but have you used that tool? Have you put it? There's so many sites. So it's like that pressure is always there. But I do believe that pressure leads to positive results. So, you could always say that it's too much of pressure, I can't take it. Or you can say that, wow, there's something new. I may have to spend a little time, but let me just get there by, learning what it is. So, let's make the environment happy and make the most of lockdown time. Probably it's going to be a memory that's going to last with us for a long time to come. In fact, I'm telling the children that document all of this. I have a little scribbling pad that, during the Kargil War when I was a kid, when there used to be blackouts in my town, where, we would, cover ourselves, all the windows with black chart paper, and lights would be off. And under our blankets, as kids, we would be keeping that little torch and writing out, what our feelings were like. And I was so awed by Annie Frank's diary, and that book is, I'm sure all children are familiar with. Who knows, your notes of today and of the pandemic and how we overcame this whole situation will be a beautiful read for us in the year to come, because there's so many lessons, whether it's from the environment where everything is getting normalized, or with the way the whole world has come together to try to find solutions for the vaccine, for the healthcare workers and everybody else, the frontline workers, who are giving their 100%, to what they can do to ensure that all of us are healthy. Perhaps we've taken too much for granted. Whether it's the army, kind of defending our borders so that we, are safe. But, I think this is time to, pray, go down and pray, and, show our gratitude to them too, and to everybody else, who's currently, kind of making sure that our lives are getting better.
Thanks, ma'am. Thank you so much for covering the mindfulness aspect also, which is very important for everybody. And I see some of the questions have already been answered, and there are a lot of requests on having a recorded version to be shared. So we'll make this available, all the leaders. So we'll make this available on YouTube channel so that you can access the video. And we'll also try to share the presentation with all of you. Somebody wanted your contact, ma'am. I'll try to share your details as well. Thank you, Nirmala ma'am. Thank you so much, Shilpa ma'am, Prerna ma'am. Thank you. So we'll give you the recording on a YouTube, like I said. Um, PPT, yes, we'll share the PPT as well. We'll try to make it available. So yeah, ma'am, pretty much one of the question was on online, offline question that we've covered on 5 E's, connecting, including the tools aspect also. We spoke about social and emotional learning also, how important
If
it
I may
is.
just add here, when we're talking of the 5 Bs, some of the modules are online and some can be done by the students offline. I'm sure that that was reiterated pretty much. But I think one point perhaps that I forgot to tell you all is that how do you cut short of your screen time? You can't have 40-minute periods, right? So you have to learn to strategize, and the teacher must effectively just communicate or teach to the point, right? And another thing is that every 20 minutes, make sure that the children get up from their seats, are given a task to move about a bit, stretch, look at something that's 20 feet away, at least for about 20 seconds, and then they come back to their desk. The 20-20-20 principle will ease the screen time strain for the children and their health. For the little ones, you could always give something like, if you're teaching colors, like you can play the Queen of Sheba game and say, can somebody run and then get me, anything that is red in color. And the children will run around, get it, and then come back to the seat and show it to the teacher. If it's the older ones, then, you can give them some fun activity like, who can do like, maximum number of jumping jacks in 1 minute. So let them get up, do the jumping jacks, count on it and post it, collaboratively on the screen as well. So some activity must be given. And, I'm sure that, when we balance the screen time, it would be great for the kids.
Great, ma'am. So thank you so much. I know we've ran 8 minutes extra. So grateful to you, ma'am. So thanks everyone for the participation. Look at EdSense Facebook page for more events, upcoming events, and also the previous event recordings as well. Thank you so much for the participation, everyone.
And thank you so much, viewers. Thank you.